what's up, y'all? Let's get his reaction. Rand Paul's issue with the Maduro capture. I'm curious. I like Rand Paul. He's definitely like Rand Paul. But let's get it. Let's go. No time to waste. 1, 2, 3. Boom.
The Joe Rogan experience.
What's your issue?
And it's kind of when people come up to me and they say, they're young, smart kids that have been interns in my office. I want to be part of government. And I say, go out and have a career first. Work somewhere. I worked as a physician for about 20 years before I ended up running. And really, you have to have a real career because politics, one, isn't that great a career, and two, there is no guarantee you can be the smartest person in the world and not win. It doesn't always. You have to be the right person, right time, right place, and a little bit of luck.
Yeah, and it's like, how can someone effectively govern if you haven't experienced life outside of the government? It just doesn't seem even rational.
Yeah,
that you could be a person that would be a good representation of all these hardworking people if you've never actually had a job. It just seems weird.
Okay, do you feel that same way about Trump? Could he really be president of the United States if he's never experienced what it's like to have a job? He's experienced the business world. He's always had a spoon in his mouth. His father was wealthy. He didn't live any humble background. So would you say the same thing about Donald Trump? I'm just curious.
Yeah, that's why people thought one of the Bushes was out of touch. I think it was the elder Bush when he went to the grocery store and he didn't know what a scanner was. He'd never seen groceries. Wow. He'd never been in a grocery store.
Wow.
That's funny. But what is it like? Like,
it's crazy
being,
too.
I mean, it's got to be incredibly frustrating, but it's also got to be bizarre.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example of what I think is bizarre. So we've been blowing up these people in boats off the coast of Venezuela. They're accused of running drugs, but nobody knows their names and nobody's put up any evidence. When we had them September 2nd, 2 of them were still clinging to the wreckage. They're shipwrecked. They blew them up. And so what I think is bizarre is I hear mostly my Republican colleagues say, well, we shouldn't have to. How do we know they're not armed? And it's like, but there's this thing called presumption of innocence. They say it doesn't apply. Well, it actually always has applied on the oceans. We've had drug interdiction, but we have always stopped boats and asked to search them. If they flee or shoot at the Coast Guard, they will get shot and blown up, but it's usually an escalatory sort of steps. We know that when the Coast Guard boards vessels off of Miami and off of California, 1 in 4 of the boats they board don't have any drugs on them. So I look at my colleagues who say...
That's fucking deep. What he's saying right now is fucking deep. Damn, like what he's saying right now is fucking deep. They are just blowing the boats up with no question. But we know that the point of it was just to grab Maduro. Like, we know that, like, everything, you can't trust anything the president says. The president is saying things to start wars or get oil profits. The thing is, I understand this part of it too, the politics of it all. And it's for the betterment of the United States. So at the end of the day, like, we do have to handle things in due process and all kind of things like that. But at the same time, oil is definitely needed in this country. So I kind of see what Trump's getting at. He's trying to build an empire. I kind of see what he's doing, but I don't know if that's a good thing.
They're pro-life and they value God's inspiration in life, but they don't give a shit about these people in the boats. And are they terrible people in boats? I don't know. They're probably poor people in Venezuela and Colombia. And really, they say, well, we're at war with them. They're committing war by bringing drugs into America. They're not even coming here. They're going to these islands in the south part of the Caribbean, the cocaine, and it's not fentanyl at all. The cocaine's going to Europe. Those little boats can't get here. No one's even asked this common question. Those boats have these 4 engines on them. They're outboard boats. You can probably go about 100 miles before you have to refuel. They're 2,000 miles from us. They have to refuel 20 times to get here. It was all a pretense and a false argument. But I guess what I don't feel connected to my Republican colleagues is that those lives don't matter at all, and we just blow them up. And against all justice and against all laws of war, all laws of just war, we never have blown up people who were shipwrecked. It's against the military code of justice to do that. And we're doing it, and everybody just says, oh, well, they're drug dealers.
Why do you think that...
Wow. If he didn't just expose something that's so fucking crazy, I never thought about it like that. Yeah, like, they can't even get here with those little ass boats. Wow. That's deep.
for attacking those people, because I've heard a bunch of different theories, and one of the big theories was they were trying to get the cartel upset at Maduro in order to get him out of office.
It's all been a pretense for arresting Maduro. So we have to set up the predicate. We got to show you we care about drugs. But the weird thing about it is they really care about drugs, except for the former president of Honduras, Hernandez, who was given a 40-year sentence, was tried, was found guilty, was given 40 years in a U.S. jail, and he's let go. At the same time, we're arresting Maduro because he's attacking the United States with drugs. And then I get this stuff. I had this on air from a respectable journalist the other day. She said, well, don't you care about the kids in our country dying from fentanyl? I said, of course I do. But no fentanyl comes from Venezuela. Not a little bit, zero.
Yeah, if we were really interested, we'd be attacking Mexico.
Well, they want to do that next. They want to bomb Mexico.
Well, do you think that this is like they're trying to set that up?
I hope not. That's why I've opposed it, because, look, I have no love lost for Maduro. I wrote another book called The Case Against Socialism. I think the socialism, historically, there's been a link between socialism and state-sponsored violence. And so in the book, we talk about a 16-year-old girl who has a gang, and her gang's turf or territory are the dumpsters outside of restaurants to scavenge for food. That's what Maduro and Chavez did to Venezuela. And so,
well, I'm going to get that book because I wrote it down in the book, because I think he's really fair when it comes to his politics. He's a Republican. He's on the Republican side. He doesn't agree with socialism, but he seems very fair with his arguments. Like, I like this guy.
I'm glad he's gone. I'm glad, I hope they choose wiser. But at the same time, if the predicate is we're going to snatch people, why don't we snatch Da Silva from Brazil? Some people say Bolsonaro is unfairly in prison. May be true. And they say Da Silva cheated in the election. May also be true. But should the President of the United States, no matter he or she is, have the ability, without a vote of Congress, the people's representatives, just go snatch people out of jails in Brazil and put a new government in? One, it doesn't usually work. Yeah, I'm hoping it's successful here, but, we've tried it in other places. It's one of the things I liked about Donald Trump. He was against regime change in Iraq. He was against regime change in Libya, and it didn't work real well in Iraq or Libya.
So what do you think changed? Why do you think they're so interested in Venezuela? Do you think it's just because of the oil?
Influence, and I've jokingly said that there ought to be
a reoccurring issue that we thought was resolved with the software. Are you back? Okay. All right, we're good.
Sorry, folks. The program was interrupted by the NSA. They are spying on the show to see.
So here's the question. The Biden administration had a $20 million, was it $20 or $22 million bounty on Maduro? Like, they've wanted Maduro out forever. Why was that?
Because they don't have free elections. It's an authoritarian government. The people are suffering. So it's this idea that that's wrong and government should. And I think that's a noble concept, to want better government, more freedom for people. But I could probably list for you a dozen different countries that have autocratic rulers right now, and we could go in and we could arrest them all and put people in place. But it sometimes backfires. For example, I think there's a good feeling towards America from a lot of Venezuelans right now that are happy that Maduro's gone. But ask them again in 6 months if we're still controlling their oil and we're doling out a little bit of money, but the money's not going to the people, it's going to the socialist government. So you realize we've traded one socialist for another.
Right.
Maduro's gone, but his second in charge, who was elected with him and holds all of his belief, is there. And if she graciously or fearfully decides to accept what they're telling her, that we're going to confiscate all the oil and we're going to sell it on the international market, we're going to give her a little bit back if she behaves. And let's say that austerity doesn't lead to a real vibrant economy.
Yeah.
I think 6 months from now, the people will be just as upset as they were. And they'll still have the same government, essentially.
Right. NFL playoffs, let's go. DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the...
I think China gets about 4% of their oil, so it's a small amount of their oil. The best way, I think, is not through war to keep China out of South America. It's through trade, cooperation. That's why threatening to bomb Colombia was a bad idea, because we should continue to trade. We buy coffee from them. We buy bananas from down there. We should have trade. So this Monday, I sent the president a text, and he responded to me. I said, the ambassador called me, and he said their president's been trying for several months to get a phone call through, and he'd love to talk to President Trump. And the good thing about President Trump, and this is something I always really like about him, he'll make decisions on the spot. He didn't ask a committee to vote on whether he can talk to the president. He said, of course I will. And the president still has good instincts. I disagreed with the bombing of the boats and the bombing of Maduro. I'm not too unhappy with the result, but I don't want the chaos to spread to Colombia. And I think Colombia does cooperate with us, particularly on the drug trade. It's not perfect, but they do cooperate. But he did end up making a phone call to the president of Colombia, and I think the setting is for less of a problem. And you say, well, why have things changed from where he was talking about regime change in the campaign? Some of it's the influence of the people around him. I've jokingly said we ought to pass a law saying Lindsey Graham shouldn't be allowed in the White House, because I think he is a bad influence. And Lindsey and I are friends. You know, we do okay, but he's much more for a different type of philosophy for me. I say we fight when we have to. We fight when attacked. Well, that's about it. I'm not too interested in fixing their arms are drugs, and they're invading us with drugs.
Okay, but they're not really, right? Because if you look at it geographically, like you were just saying, they're so far away from us. They're in small boats, and they're not bringing those drugs to the United States.
And the only way they can make war with the drugs is if they're hitting you over the head with the drugs and then making you take the drugs, all right? So I think that's ridiculous. And I think that there is a difference between crime and war. And the reason why they have to get it is it normally, like if, let's say the boat came all the way here, that speedboat got all the way to Miami, offloaded it into a U-Haul truck, and it's going down the road. Do we stand on the side of the road and hit it with grenade launchers? Nobody would be for that. All of a sudden, we're going to believe that, well, gosh, we might blow up the wrong truck, or maybe we got the information wrong. We would stop and search them.
Yeah.
But why don't we do the boats? The Coast Guard actually still does. Amidst all this, Coast Guard is still stopping dozens of boats. But they tell us we're only blowing up the ones that are related to the terrorists, the Tren de Aragua or whatever. I don't know how they can know that with certainty. I don't know how they can know with certainty that I think most of these probably
so
were
why do you
drug
think
raids.
they're doing it then?
They wanted regime change, and I think Rubio has wanted regime change. He's been itching for it for 15 years, and I think he has a great deal of influence with the president. And they've convinced, and it's a selling someone like the president that he can use his power for good is an argument that I think a lot of people would succumb to. He believes that he's doing good. And if it all works out and freedom rings true in Venezuela, people will say, well, gosh, yeah, I think he did. And that's why now people think he did the right thing. I think people don't know yet what's going to happen, whether or not people are going to be happy keeping the same socialist government, whether they'll have a free election and somebody else will win, isn't known yet. But I do think that while he's done that, and it seems to have worked, it's my job and others to say that really invading Greenland's not a reasonable thing. Invading Cuba, invading Colombia, that there has to be pushback. But I get a lot of flack. I mean, there are people that rally behind the president that are telling me I need to pipe down, that I need to be quiet. So the threats
on that.
Well, a lot of the mob, the internet mob is angry.
Internet
is angry.
Yeah, you can't read that.
Yeah, you can't, but you got to be a little bit wary also. But I mean, there is a thought, and I don't think it's good for government though. I also don't even think it's good for the president, who I largely like on a lot of issues. It's not good for him to have no critics, for people to be afraid to criticize him.
I agree. So is the argument that they want regime change that these cartels are working with Maduro? And that's why we blow them up?
That's sort of the argument, but I don't think the cartels and the drugs are really important. It's about regime change. But
if it's about regime change, why blow up the drug boat?
Because they need a drug predicate. They want to say this isn't war. It is kind of war, and we're going to take people as if it's war, but it's not really war. It was an arrest warrant. And they've actually persuaded some otherwise good people in my caucus to say, well, normally I would be against bombing another nation's capital and removing the leader. Oh, but he was indicted for the indictment. Most people don't know this. Part of the indictment is for drugs, but he's breaking a U.S. law. How do we indict foreigners in their country? They haven't broken the law in our country for breaking the law. But other than drugs, they've also indicted Maduro for possessing or conspiring to possess machine guns. And it's like, What leader in the world doesn't have security guards with machine guns? We have machine guns.
Wait a minute. Did Maduro personally have illegal machine guns? And illegal how? Is it illegal internationally? Like, what does that mean?
It means absolutely nothing.
But that's crazy. That means there's
completely
how many
insane.
people in Texas have machine guns? You could legally have them here.
I used to go to the Machine Gun Fest, and it was a machine gun shootout. And they'd have a line of 50 machine guns. You have to have a special permit to get them, but
Right.
you can get them. And but the thing is what's ridiculous about it is our leaders, our soldiers have machine
Of course.
guns. Every country that has soldiers and security forces has machine guns, but to indict him, but that's then their argument is it's okay to blow up Caracas. It's okay to do something that looks like a war, but it's not a war because it was just an arrest warrant. It's a game. It's gamesmanship for people who might succumb to I think a silly argument.
Damn, man, like he's one of those people that they call him the wise fools. I want you guys to look into this concept. It's called the wise fool, where it's like you are kind of a whistleblower on accident. And I'm not calling him a fool. I'm not saying he himself is a fool, but you're kind of a whistleblower. You're on the opposite side and you have arguments that would seem to be left-wing arguments, but you still agree with a lot of things the president is doing. You just like, you actually point out the wrongs, and you're somewhat of a whistleblower. To say everything he just said was definitely whistleblowing to some degree. Even though the information is already in the public, it's like you kind of putting the attention to the audience, and not just the left audience. Republicans listen to what you're saying, so you're kind of a huge whistleblower and kind of a real detriment to the you could be a detriment to the other side if he sticks to it. But that was a great video, man. I couldn't even turn it off. All right, y'all, I'm out. Peace.